Hello and welcome to Unbossed. I am your host, Nina Turner, and I am so glad that you have joined us today. And in the co-host chair is none other than Mayor Mondale Robinson. And we both jam into the intro. Sometimes that intro just gets you and you just got to rock to it, baby. How you doing, Mayor?
It's a blessing. It's Friday, so my highlights are beginning.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. You're so sweet. We're so glad to have you here to do the analysis on today's hot Friday show. We're gonna start off with, here we go again, Trump indicted. It's deja vu. President Donald Trump has been indicted again. Take a look.
Very sadly, we're a nation in decline, and yet they go after a popular president, a president that got more votes than any sitting president in the history of our country, by far. And they go after him on a boxer's hoax, just like the Russia hoax and all of the others. This has been going on for 7 years. They can't stop because it's election interference at the highest level. There's never been anything like what's happened. I'm an innocent man, I'm an innocent person.
Well, the former president said it. That was him ranting about being indicted and laying it out that he's an innocent man. This headline right here, Trump charged in classified documents case, second indictment in months. Former president, first ever to face federal criminal charges, posts on social media that he must appear in court in Miami on Tuesday. Now, we do have some breaking news in this segment. Yes, breaking news. According to unsealed indictment from this afternoon, President Trump will face 37 counts. Yes, that's 37 counts. Trump originally made the announcement yesterday on Truth Social in a ranting monologue, as he always does. Trump being Trump. Here it is, page one. The corrupt Biden administration has informed my attorney that I have been indicted, seemingly over the boxes hoax. Even though Joe Biden has 1,850 boxes at the University of Delaware, additional boxes in Chinatown, DC, with even more boxes at the University of Pennsylvania, and documents strewn all over his garage floor where he parks his Corvette, and which is secured by only a garage door that is paper thin and open most of the time. Now, that was President Donald J. Trump in his own rambling words. But here are some of the charges that Trump faces: violating the Espionage Act, conspiracy charges, obstruction, and false statements. What's more, this exclusive, Donald Trump admits on tape he didn't declassify secret information. Lord have mercy on all of our souls. Now, if convicted, Trump could face decades in prison. The Espionage Act violations can carry up to 10 years in prison, while obstruction of justice, also a felony, carries a maximum penalty of 20 years. It is by no means certain that Mr. Trump would be convicted. Some legal experts believe it would be difficult to prove that he committed a crime. I think this is a great place for us to remind you that an indictment is not, folks, is not a conviction. Now, Trump wasn't the only one complaining about the indictment. Listen to this rich hypocrisy from Fox News host Mark Levin.
President Trump is 76 years old. If the Department of Justice gets his way, he will die in federal prison. Just by one of these counts, conspiracy to obstruct justice, which has a 20-year maximum sentence. This is a disgusting mark on American history for the future to come, by these bandits in the White House, by the Democrat Party that don't play fair anymore. They don't want to just win elections. They want to take control of this country. They want one-party rule. And they have used the Department of Justice and the FBI to get what they want.
There we are. And you know what? He wasn't the only one to come to President Trump's rescue. You are not gonna believe this, but the one and only Ron DeSantis, AKA Ron DeSanctimonious, actually came to President Trump's defense on Twitter. Let's take a look at what he tweeted. The weaponization of federal law enforcement represents a mortal threat to a free society. We have for years witnessed an uneven application of the law dependent upon political affiliation. Why so zealous in pursuing Trump, yet so passive about Hillary or Hunter? The DeSantis administration will bring accountability to the Department of Justice, excise political bias, and end weaponization once and for all. Now, ain't that the pot calling the kettle black? Let's go ahead and bring the mayor in here. That last part, Mayor, really got to me when he said that we are going to excise political bias and weaponization once and for all. I mean, he the king of weaponization of politics. Your thoughts on what's unfolding, Mayor?
I mean, we have an idiot in one breath, and DeSantis or DeSarias or whatever you call him. We have a king in using taxpayer dollars for stuff that it shouldn't be used for. He literally just announced that he's gonna be using Florida taxpayer dollars to support sheriffs all over the country. That you are literally using taxpayer dollars to run your campaign without spending campaign money, and ain't nobody talking about that. That's enough. That's enough about him. Let's talk about Trump and this ego who sat in this little social media post talking about somebody in the third person till we finally realized, oh, he's talking about himself when he said, I'm innocent, right? Of course you're innocent, except for you're not. Let's be clear here. What we see is Donald Trump is not being charged because he had boxes of documents. You've been charged because you were hiding and lying to federal agents about those documents. They gave you time and time again. People continue to pretend that Donald Trump's situation is the same as Joe Biden. They both had documents, absolutely. Everybody has, not everybody, a few people that left the White House had documents. The difference is what you were trying to do with those documents and how you was trying to keep them hidden. Donald Trump is on tape lying about what he was doing with those documents. And then when the FBI showed up, he said he didn't have them, but of course he did. He had them and he moved them. Donald Trump is the disgusting part of American history that reminds us when we think about the idea that when we think about so many people still supporting Donald Trump, so many people still supporting this past president, and all of his shenanigans, we are obligated to really take a hard look at who we are as a society. How can you lie so much about so many things and still be taken serious? Donald Trump as a presidential candidate isn't a problem. America and her support for Donald Trump reminds the entire world that we are childish with our politics, for sure.
For sure. I mean, really taking a look at the man and the woman, the person in the mirror is definitely necessary. Now, President Trump might have allies in the media, but it seems like his attorneys are jumping ship. Trump indictment live updates. 2 lawyers quit ex-president's defense in classified documents case. Coming from CNBC. I'm surprised he got any lawyers at all, but here we are. It's good Trump is being held accountable, but if you're going to go after Trump, go after all of his enablers in Congress too. Why just let President Donald J. Trump have all the fun? Go ahead and get them Congress members as well. Go after Trump's owner donors. Go after the corporate execs who try to threaten their employees' rights and abilities to bargain, to create unions, or to stand up for better wages, work conditions, and benefits. Department of Justice, where are you at on those kinds of people? Go after governors such as Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott, who are abusing their power in ways that affects millions of people, as the mayor just laid out. The man is using taxpayers' dollars of the great people of the state of Florida all over this country to use migrants and immigrants as political pawns, putting them on airplanes, shipping them all over the country. Now he's funding sheriff's departments or other police agencies that are not even in the state of Florida. State of Florida, what is up with you to let this man walk all over you for his misdeeds? I mean, why aren't y'all standing up against this dude? Department of Justice, why don't you bring some charges against Ron DeSantis and bring some charges against these CEOs who playing games, who are unpatriotic in every single way and who are the primary cause of inflation in the United States of America. How about go after them? The DOJ has a long list that goes beyond just Donald Trump. So Mayor, you and I started that conversation without really knowing that we were going to have this conversation, which is, can y'all walk and chew bubblegum at the same time? There's a lot of work for the Department of Justice doing. Let me add to that before you jump in here, Mayor, that they also should go after these state legislatures that are overturning voter access all over this country too. How about they add all this to the long list and not just this one president? Let's have a both and.
A both and should be a T-shirt that everybody's buying. Like it should be trending on Twitter right now, right? But let's also be clear, sis. You know this, Senator, and I know this for a fact. It ain't even Department of Justice. Garland and his deputy has went out of their way to make sure this was not a political thing. No elected official, no appointed official has anything to do with Trump's charges. Garland didn't approve them. He didn't sign off on them. He made sure that him and his deputy were out of the way. This is a special counsel, and people should understand the rules of special counsel or that govern special counseling. And they are not political appointments at all. The most senior person to look at this, or lawyer from the Justice Department to look at this, is a lifelong federal agent. Like, right, this person has worked for the government under many presidents from both parties. So this idea that this is a political attack is wrong. The idea that Donald Trump is lying and saying the Biden administration told him he was being charged is a lie. This didn't come from the Biden administration. This is not political. What we're hearing from our Republican partners, or I should say neighbors, is that they're okay with any Republican president that shows up like Trump. Meaning, as long as you achieve office of president, you can commit any crime you want to, and we won't charge you for anything. This is absolutely disgusting. And that long list that you're talking about should absolutely include everybody that you listed, for sure.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sure we're leaving off a few others, but we reserve the right to add to the list. How about that? We're gonna keep adding to this long list. Now, Trump, President Trump is not going away. I hope people understand that. And thanks to his followers and his political enablers, like we said, Trump is here to stay. He's gonna stay for a long time, especially as long as he's walking this face of the earth. And his supporters are not going anywhere either. Unfortunately, this will feed into what they believe is a political attack against President Donald J. Trump. Now check out this headline right here from The Guardian. 12 million, that's 12 million Americans believe violence is justified to restore Trump to power. Do y'all understand that? 12 million people, and it's probably a little more, but we know at least 12 million people in this country had the pure unadulterated gall. They were not ashamed to admit that violence would be okay to bring Trump back to power. And this chart right here breaks it all down for you. Belief that use of force is justified to restore Trump to the presidency. Now it has declined, but my God, the fact that it was that high and it's still this high, agree or strongly agree, the use of force is justified to restore Donald Trump to the presidency. At one point, and that is June of 2021, it was at 9.1%. It held steady. Now it has declined over the year or so, almost 2 years now. And we got April, 4.4%, or 12 million people. So it is important that you understand quite clearly who and what we are dealing with when it comes to Donald J. Trump. And the decline from June 21 doesn't make it any less dangerous for his supporters to be riled up. We know that. Donald Trump is a match, and the people are like the gasoline, and all he got to do is just light it and they go crazy. 12 million people believing that violence, did you hear us? Violence is okay to restore President Donald J. Trump back to power. We know what happened on January the 6th, and even if he's locked in prison, let's say for example, let's take the shot. We're gonna take the shot that President Donald J. Trump goes to prison. He will manage to find a way to run, because guess what, America? In America, there's no prohibition for running for president from prison, and he wouldn't be the first candidate to do so. Eugene V. Debs, Debs, the legendary anti-capitalist, and let us be clear, underlined it, underscore it, exclamation point, message in a bottle. There is no comparison whatsoever to the type of man, the type of human being that Eugene Debs was and Donald Trump is. But by way of example, we're just giving you the history here. He was an anti-capitalist of the 19th century who vehemently supported workers' rights. He ran for president from prison in 1921. Take a look at this right here. The socialist who ran for president from prison and won nearly 1 million votes. And you got to understand that Eugene Debs was running against the machine, baby. He was running against the status quo. He wasn't a lapdog for either one of the major parties. Eugene V. Debs did not speak on election night in 1920. The socialist presidential contender was, in his words, a candidate in seclusion, imprisoned in the Atlanta federal penitentiary for speaking out against the draft during World War I. That's it. So if anything, we got to think about how the support for Trump may even grow. Mayor, your final thoughts.
Listen, people better than that, they better not, sis. Listen, spend your Friday doing other things, but don't breeze over what you just talked about. First of all, there's a couple things that we need to focus on. The idea that 12 million Americans think violence is the answer to bring Trump back into power is disgusting. Let us be minded that the largest army that inflicted the most death on American army was the Confederate Army. That was only, at their largest, the Confederate Army was only 1 million people, a little over 1 million. That means 12 times the size of Americans right now feel like that Donald Trump should be in power and they're willing to enact violence against that. That is scary, scary beyond scary. He's duped enough Americans to believe that he can enact or do anything to democracy, even do away with it and make sure that he's in power. And I think people breezing over that like it's a small thing is dangerous. It's very dangerous. Also, what you just pointed out about Deb is a serious thing. Donald Trump in prison is a more powerful Donald Trump than Donald Trump on a campaign ballot. And we about to be prepared for what that means.
We surely do, Mayor. He would. They're making not dying, but martyr-like conditions for President Trump. So we shall see. We can't sleep on this, and we have to be absolutely ready. And as the mayor and I clear out this segment, it just made me think of a couple of quotes from the great Eugene Debs. Again, let me repeat this, not comparing Donald J. Trump to Eugene Debs at all, just certainly the example that one can run for prison. Donald J. Trump will never be a Eugene Debs. Eugene Debs once said, "I have no country to fight for. My country is the earth. I am a citizen of the world." Another beautiful quote. While there is a lower class, I am in it. While there is a criminal element, I am of it. And while there is a soul in prison, I am not free. That coming from the great, the one and only Eugene Debs, who had the courage to challenge this country and to run for president and shake its foundation, so much so that they found a way to put this man in prison. Wrap your mind around all that the mayor and I have shared with you during this first segment of Unbossed, and we will be back after this. Welcome back to the show. Hopefully you did some deep thinking over those few minutes. We want to make sure that you support TYT on social media. Make sure you support TYT Network and certainly Unbossed. Go to Unbossed on Twitter, will you? And follow us there and retweet too. I want to thank everybody on the TYT mods for keeping the chat clean, safe, and fun. We appreciate you for doing that. And wouldn't you like to become a member? For $4.99, baby, you can become a member and help TYT continue to do what we do, baby, which is to bring you great independent news. Why don't you do that for $4.99 a month? You can continue to help TYT have the impact that we have had for going on over 20 years. We need you, boo. We need you to do that. Become a member, $4.99. And go ahead and gift somebody too while you're at it. And Dr. Richie is on Sirius. Join Dr. Rashad Richie on Sundays on Sirius XM channel 126 for the Dr. Rashad Richie Review. Check it out on Sirius XM Urban View on Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or 10 a.m. Pacific time. We got to support our Dr. Richie. He be doing the thing. Now on to my absolute, and you know I mean this from all four chambers of my heart, my absolute favorite part of the show. We're gonna start with Twitch. Roses in August. That intro is fab. Ain't it though, Roses in August? We love that intro, baby. It brings so much. So, and I gotta tell you, I think it's the best intro on TYT, but you ain't gotta tell my colleagues about it. And the mayor's clapping, it is true. Christina Gogdon. I hope I got that right, baby. CC, I'm just calling you CC. Nina in the house with exclamation points. Thank you for that, darling. Sending you so much love. And Re918, if they went after all the people that quote deserve to be gone after, no one would be left in government. That is a very, very good point, Re918. Now on to YouTube Super Chat, Ace in Black. Ah, snap. The beat right here. I know that's right. That is a great walk-on theme song in the Unbossed intro. And Jago the Rogue. Ooh, production, y'all, on the fly today, huh? Shout out to the production crew. Absolutely, shout out to the production crew. And on TYT members, Dana Manning, gather your throwing papers. Grab your fire extinguisher and stay right here on this stream for Unbossed. Thank you for that, Dana Manning. You know that's right. And Crystal Braden, the soulless. Put the mayor up, y'all. The soulless literally out there throwing gas on the culture war fires, and he wants to whine political weaponization. Sure, Ron. Oh, calling him mayor, the hypocrite that he is. Thank you all so much for your comments. We know that there are many more. We can't get to all of them, but we appreciate you participating as you watch Unbossed live. And this is a great time to remind you that you can catch us also on video on demand. So if you are enjoying the show today, please send a link to one of your friends or your frenemies so that they can watch us on demand. We need you, baby. Now we go into the Supreme Court of the United States. Finally, they rule right this time. They ruled the voting map diluted black voting power. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Supreme Court, is that you? I am so shocked. This headline, Supreme Court unexpectedly upholds provisions prohibiting racial gerrymandering. Unexpectedly indeed. In an absolute surprising move, the Supreme Court of the United States did not totally gut the 1965 Voting Rights Act. Here's the basics of the case. At issue in the case was Alabama's congressional redistricting plan adopted after the 2020 census. The Republican-dominated legislature drew new district lines that packed large numbers of black voters into one congressional district and then spread out the remaining black population in other districts so that black voters had little chance of electing a second representative of their choice in a racially polarized state. This reporting is coming from Nina Totenberg of NPR. By a 5-4 vote, a coalition of conservative and liberal justices reaffirmed the court's 1986 precedent, interpreting how legislative districts must be drawn under the landmark Voting Rights Act as amended in 1982. The court said that in Alabama, a state where there are 7 congressional seats and 1 in 4 voters is black, the Republican-dominated state legislature had denied African-American voters a reasonable chance to elect a second representative of their choice. You better go ahead and say that. And we got bonuses coming, baby, if you can believe that. Get ready for this. The decision could reverberate across other states with reconsideration of how congressional lines are drawn in areas with significant Black populations. Go ahead and put the mayor up. Mayor, you know who I'm thinking about right now? I'm thinking about Gary Chambers in the great state of Louisiana, baby. I'm thinking about, I mean, come on now. There's some stuff a brewing. And while the mayor is getting ready to make his comments, let's just go ahead and show our viewers who the justices that voted the correct way to preserve the rest of the Voting Rights Act. And we see the justices right there, Justice Sotomayor, Justice Kagan, Justice Brown Jackson, Justice Brett Kavanaugh, and Chief Justice John Roberts. This is how they voted, and this is where we are. So those lines must be redrawn. And as I mentioned earlier, it is going to reverberate across the country in a positive way. Mayor?
This is first of all, that coalition of justices is blowing my mind. The fact that the only Black man on that ballot said, or on that court voted no on this or voted against this is absolutely disgusting. And we should acknowledge that, because the 15th Amendment did something 54 years ago about Black men and our right to vote. So the fact that Clarence Thomas doesn't even feel safe being a Black man, even when it pertains to our voting rights, when his white friends are willing to go along with it, is absolutely disgusting, and it shows you where his loyalty lies. The idea that the Supreme Court ruled on this is basically a rebuke of one of their decisions. Not some of these people weren't on the, John Jackson and a couple other justices were not on the court, Kavanaugh, when they voted on Holder v. Shelby, I'm sorry.
Shelby.
But what we see though is we see that people are acknowledging we have to protect Black people where our vote is historically been prevented. Right? Alabama and other southern states also, where we see they're willing to stack, pack, and crack districts to ensure that Black people have no voice in state politics. I mean, North Carolina is one of those states where you see our state, as you look at the people, how we're registered, it's almost 50-50 Democrats and Republicans, but Republicans have drawn districts where they basically control 90% of the state Congress. And I think until we are willing to address this based on racial ideas, then we're gonna have these problems. So I'm super excited about the fact that maybe the Supreme Court just gave wind to states like North Carolina and other people to address or find a way to bring cases that can address the harm that's happening to Black voters and our voices in these states.
Yeah, I am pleasantly surprised too, Mayor. Like I said, surprise. Did not at all see this coming, but very happy that it did. Oh my God, we're gonna definitely keep you posted as other states. Again, this will have an impact on some of the gerrymandering that went on in 2020 in other states in this union. And the mayor's already brought up Justice Clarence Thomas. We're gonna give Justice Thomas his own little part in this segment right here. The mayor let you know that the man did not vote with the justices to uphold the fact that what Alabama did was wrong. He went the exact opposite way. And not only did he go the opposite way, he did almost 50 pages worth of dissent the opposite way. This headline right here, Clarence Thomas wrote a scathing, nearly 50-page dissent about why the Supreme Court should have gutted voting rights. The Black man on the Supreme Court who comes from a generation who should especially understand how hard it was to get the right vote went not just the opposite way, he went there on a turbojet. And absolutely proud of it. In his dissenting opinion, Thomas wrote that the court's decision has turned Section 2, the part of the Voting Rights Act that bans gerrymandering based on race, into, quote, nothing more than a racial entitlement to roughly proportional control of elective offices limited by feasibility, where different racial groups consistently prefer different candidates, in quote. I can't believe it, but yeah, the man did that. This reporting is coming from Business Insider. Now, it is hard to understand why Justice Thomas would contort himself and I mean really contort himself to be against ensuring that black voters are not disenfranchised. He goes even further, saying the Voting Rights Act doesn't require Alabama intentionally redraw its long-standing congressional districts so that black voters can control. The man ain't even capitalized black. Black should be capitalized when you're talking about the people. But anyway, let me just keep on going. So that black voters can control a number of seats roughly proportional to the black share of the state's population. The man said the Voting Rights Act doesn't require that. That is coming from Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Now, I can't even pretend to be surprised, sisters and brothers and family and friends. I wish that I could, but I cannot. I was discussing with the mayor even before we got to this segment of how Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall did not want Justice Thomas to take his place. He made it very clear before he left this plane of existence that this man was not going to do justice for the things that he stood for as the first black person, black man on the United States Supreme Court. And what he predicted would happen is absolutely happening with Clarence Thomas. This headline here from 2021, I believe. I'm gonna double check myself on that. But this is, I'm sorry, 2013. Let me do that. 2013, this headline, July 2013, aptly describes this justice, Clarence Thomas, the anti-Thurgood Marshall. With his recent comparison of affirmative action to slavery, Justice Clarence Thomas appears determined to undo the civil rights and equal justice accomplishments of his predecessor, Justice Thurgood Marshall. And I know Justice Thurgood Marshall is probably rolling over in his grave right now, that this man is doing the things that he has done, not just in this moment, but in subsequent moments where it required courage and true justice to stand up for what is right. And this man went entirely the opposite direction. And this quote from Justice Thurgood Marshall, I think, is very fitting for this moment. I wish I could say that racism and prejudice were only distant memories. We must dissent from the indifference. We must dissent from the apathy. We must dissent from the fear, the hatred, and the mistrust. We must dissent because America can do better, because America has no choice but to do better. Some of the words from the great, the one and only Justice Thurgood Marshall. Mayor, as I said before, I wish I could feign that I'm surprised, but I am not surprised. This is Justice Clarence Thomas being exactly who he is.
Yeah, and unfortunately, who he is anti-black. This is a prime example of how you can look and exist in black skin and be anti-black. The idea that you are against something as important as the voting right, which actually makes you a whole citizen, gives you a space and voice in democracy. And to show up in this manner is absolutely disgusting. And not just show up where you dissent, but you dissent with 50 pages of BS. 50 pages of BS that is not grounded in anything other than racism. I mean, like this, I'm a brother of the South. I'm from North Carolina. This guy and his family, he's Geechee like my people. And I am completely embarrassed. His family, you said Clarence, you said I'm sorry, brother.
Thurgood Marshall.
Thank you, Marshall is rolling over his grave. His mom and dad, who were sharecroppers, are rolling over in their grave that their son is on the nation's highest court, only to show up in a manner that disregard and disrespect their lived experiences. You cannot say that you are about or care about equity in this country, and you can acknowledge that the systematic harm that this country does to black people. And every time Clarence Thomas write a 50-page decision against voting rights, and also the need for black people's voting right to be protected in states like Alabama or other southern states that historically blocked us from voting. And when I say blocking, don't think I'm talking about barricades. I'm thinking about nooses from trees with black bodies swinging from them. So for him to pretend that this is a small matter is absolutely disgusting. And it's his ancestors that's rolling over and really rolling.
Yeah, that part, Mayor. I mean, really, it's just unfathomable. But this is Justice Clarence Thomas. And some of our viewers, Mayor, are agreeing with you on how bad this is. We got Michael R. Hassler, voting rights on a respirator. Got that right. And that started with Shelby v. Holder in 2011. I believe that case was, but absolutely right. And on YouTube Super Chat, G Martinez Mac, come on, Aunt Nina, turn up the big fact energy, unbossed somebody. Thank you, Martinez Mac. And Long Shot Louis, my concern that the Supreme Court is they give us drip of good news while planning all the while to strip us of our rights the next time. You got a really good point there, Long Shot Louis. And lastly, from a TYT member, Sexy Speed Racer, happy Friday, Sexy Speed Racer. Great state of Florida, as in DUH. Most officials from the state always remind me of Porky Wallace brother from Porky Films. Thank you, Sexy Speed Racer. You did that. Oh my goodness, but all good points. We thank you all so much for joining us in this conversation. I know you might find this next segment hard to believe, but there are 2 legislators in my great state who are fighting to end slavery as a punishment. You heard it right. I did not make a mistake in that. I said it, end slavery as a punishment. And so I find myself often questioning what century we are in. The fact that in 2023, slavery is in a constitution of any state has me scratching my head and really, really hard. This headline right here, Ohio lawmakers want to abolish slavery as punishment for crimes. Ohio lawmakers have introduced a joint resolution that would remove slavery and involuntary servitude from the state's constitution as a punishment for crimes. The amendment was introduced by Rep. Dontavius Jarrells, a Democrat representing Columbus, and Rep. Phil Plummer, a Republican representing Dayton. The proposed amendment was referred to the Constitutional Resolution Committee on Wednesday. Good stuff. Now, when you talk about bipartisanship, this is a real good example, not the fake faux example. Because just because something bipartisan don't make it good, baby. Let me repeat that one more time. Just because something is bipartisan does not make it good. And so when they try to throw the debt ceiling, looking at you federal level down our throats and say it was bipartisan, therefore it's good, not all the time. But this case right here, this particular case, this is absolutely good. Now, Article 1, Section 6 of the Constitution of the state of Ohio currently says there shall be no slavery in this state, nor involuntary servitude unless for the punishment of a crime. Reminds me very much of the little clause in the 13th Amendment, which I know the mayor is gonna go in on. Lawmakers are proposing the language to change to there shall never be, hello somebody, slavery in this state, nor involuntary servitude. I had to throw that hello somebody in there. They should go and put that in there for emphasis. Now, if the proposal is passed, and we hope that it is, if the proposal is passed by the House and the Senate, it would need to be placed on an issue on the general election ballot. It would require a 50% majority vote plus 1 to pass because the measure was proposed by lawmakers. Let's just go ahead on Ohio and get this on the ballot and make it clear we're not rolling like that anymore. Now, this is not the first time that lawmakers in the Ohio General Assembly has attempted to do away with that language. Former Ohio Representative Alicia Reese from the Cincinnati area and Representative Cecil Thomas from the Cincinnati area as well, both introduced a bill and or a joint resolution in 2016 and in 2020 respectively. But this is in fact the first time that we have bipartisan introduction of a resolution to do away with the language. Mayor, your thoughts?
Listen, let's be clear, sis. I mean, you're being an extreme wonderful diplomat when you say bipartisan doesn't mean it's great. Most of the time it means it's bad, right? If it was for bipartisanship, we would still be enslaved, you and I, right? If it was bipartisanship, we wouldn't have had the Civil Rights Movement Act, anything, right, from the 60s. So usually when something says bipartisan, it is not for the benefit of black people, and it's definitely not to end slavery or to get rid of it in language. So the idea that Ohio is leading the country in this idea, because the 13th Amendment, you talked about that. People forget that the 13th Amendment gave the right for prison slavery, right? It's slavery by another name. If you look at this country's history before we ended slavery, there were no state prisons all over this country. North Carolina had none. But as soon as they rewrote the Constitution after the Confederate state of North Carolina came back into the Union, they added that it was mandated that they have prisons, and they created black codes to enslave the same people who had just been freed supposedly because of the Emancipation Proclamation. Same people have been freed have become slaves again by another worm. So I applaud Ohio on this, but the problem is, listen, I'm all about changing constitutions, but we need to rethink what we're talking about, right? These two reps see that we need to change this, and they still can't do it just because they can. You still have to get 50% of people in a state that is 80% white to say, yes, these black folk can not suffer from slavery anymore. If you look at the prison population of who's in prison in Ohio, when I say black people, I am grounded in facts. I'm not talking about sheer numbers, percentages. Black people are over in prison in that state, and using the prison system as slavery is nothing but a continuation of the peculiar institution that made America as rich as it is. I am super excited about it. I'm also disgusted that Ohio in 2023 is the only state talking about it.
Yeah, I'm excited too, and I share your disgust, Mayor, absolutely. And this conversation, by the way, I mean, Ohio, I'm so happy for us. And I think, Mayor, there may be a few other states. I wanna say Colorado is in there too, but there have been a few other states. But hopefully this will encourage other states to just go ahead and comb through your constitution and let's clear all this nonsense out. And then that will build the foundation for dealing with the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution. Let's go back to our viewers. Blazing Monkey, that part about it being in Ohio is the part I don't believe. Oh, Blazing Monkey, go ahead, Mayor.
Can I say something, sis? I think this too, and I'm a child of history and I love it. So we should not continue to like dump on Ohio. Blazing Monkey, I love you. Thank you for watching the show. I am a huge fan of Unbossed, so I'm glad you're watching it as well. But I think we should say with a straight face that Ohio was safety for black people running from slavery. Right? Ohio was this point. This is why the Underground Railroad Museum is in Cincinnati, because it was safe. Once you got to Ohio, you knew you had made it to safety. So people should understand the long history of the people in Ohio supporting black people's lives. So we may see what the politicians are doing. Don't get that confused with the long history of people supporting black people's freedom in Ohio. That's not to say that there's not racism there, but it's also to say they acknowledge what their role is in the Underground Railroad and black freedom.
And thank you for reminding us of that, Mayor. And right here in my home city of Cleveland, Ohio, Cleveland was designated as Hope. That was our name, Hope, on the Underground Railroad, baby. You better respect that name. Put some respect on that name. We got Savage Lou, fill those seats with progressives. I hear you, Savage Lou. And Orpheus Alcon, it needs to be abolished federally. Amen to that. The mayor and I were just talking about that. Again, thank you all so much for your comments. We're gonna talk about Canada now, with the Canadian wildfires raging on and affecting air quality throughout much of the northeastern part of the United States of America. Millions of people are affected, except Fox News hosts. Watch this.
Ignorance. Not everybody knows that burning forests from Canada has blacked out North America dozens and dozens of times over the last 300 years. They're banking on people not knowing that. Extreme hot winds that has taken over Canada. This is a normal Canadian June.
Burn, that prevents the bigger fires like the one they're experiencing in Little Justin's neighborhood in Canada. That's now making it smoke all the way down here.
Yeah, I think a lot of people realize what's happening. They're remaining cool, calm, collected. I think, like you just mentioned, a lot of people are just having PTSD from seeing so many people wearing masks again.
By the way, what were those two young, healthy people doing with a mask?
Double masking, by the way. They were double masked up.
Look, the air is ugly. It's unpleasant to breathe. And for a lot of people, they get anxiety over it. But the reality is there's no health risk.
And none of those people are medical professionals. None of them. And they sitting up here giving advice to people and trying to shame folks for masking up to try to protect their lungs. And to say that this is normal. Sisters and brothers, family and friends, I assure you that there is nothing normal about this. And those particles in the air can cause harm, not only to human beings, but to the ecosystem itself, both animals and nature itself, our water, our air, our food, all of that. So please, y'all don't get your medical advice, your health advice, or what you should be doing to protect yourself from anybody on Fox News. Mayor, these people, I just can't with them. I mean, I do feel like I want to throw some papers at this point. I haven't thrown any at all throughout the show. Let me just throw a few. Your thoughts, Mayor?
Listen, I think throwing the paper is real. What is the purpose of trying to injure people? Why are you telling people that they don't need to be masked up when we breathe it in carcinogenic? Like this is beyond ridiculous to me. There's nothing normal about this. What are they? Don't believe your lying eyes. We live through history. This is something serious. Fires from Canada are creating haze in the nation capital in America. This is a big deal. This is a problem with global warming. I don't understand what Fox News, and I'm air quotes on the news, a willingness to go this far. This is ridiculous. You are gonna harm someone, some idiot, and I say idiot because I'm telling you, the people watching and believing the mess that's on Fox News will not have a mask on. That person will be injured. That person will be injured because of the stuff they're spewing over there. And it's absolutely disgusting, and it should be said. This is not a small factor. None of those people are medical doctors. You said that. That's a real thing. People offering expert advice and not saying, hey, I'm not a doctor. I don't know if this is true. They're just saying it as if it's blanketly true. You're gonna kill somebody. My mother is suffering from CPOD. You're telling me people that are on oxygen right now should be okay with that. You absolutely are not. The air quality in New York right now looks like what China looks like on a daily basis. It is dangerous to breathe that in. And people should acknowledge that. And this is not normal. This is global warming. This is global warming.
This is global warming, global chaos, and it's just really a shame. And the people who are suffering the most, because they leaving this out too, people like your mother, Mayor, people with asthma, and then just whole groups of people, because studies show that populations of color face higher risk of particle pollution due to gentrification. Gentrification leads to the worst type of air quality. Poorer people in many communities of color already at a higher risk of particle pollution in their everyday lives, experts say, are disproportionately being affected by this latest wave of smoke infiltrating the region. Now, we're getting this from people who are experts in this and not these random Fox News hosts. A study from Harvard found that Blacks, Asians, Hispanics, Latinos, and low-income populations are being exposed to higher levels of dangerous fine particle air pollution than other groups. Most often, these communities are more densely populated, live in closer proximity to pollution-generating facilities, and/or have jobs like bus drivers or in agriculture that exposes them to the elements more often than others. Further, for many city inhabitants, without quality air filtration and access to adequate healthcare options, ding, 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 living near sources of air pollution like major roadways, industrial facilities, and ports can lead to a variety of health effects ranging from asthma to reduced lung function to cardiovascular disease. In the most extreme cases, it can lead to premature death. Underline it, bolded, underscored, message in a bottle, baby. And these challenges, because these are absolutely challenges that must be faced. And we are often reminded when situations of this magnitude happens that we need to deal with climate chaos as a world. But the challenges facing the most at-risk populations are a vulnerability issue that will only worsen over time due to climate change, which research shows has resulted in a warmer, drier condition that result in longer and more active fire seasons across North America. Are you all connecting the dots? Are you following the breadcrumbs? Do you understand what is happening here? This is circular, it is a cycle, and everything is absolutely connected. Or better yet, think of a domino. One falls, they all falling, baby. And with gentrification, where we started, comes increased construction and traffic, which leads to more exhaust and air pollution. If gentrification is accompanied by increased parks and green space, we think air quality will eventually improve, but we know that is not always the case. Mayor shaking his head. Mayor, we want to go to the next segment, but you can go ahead and dive on in on this.
I don't need to mansplain it. You did a wonderful job of telling people what's really going on. It is absolutely cyclical, and people should understand and pay attention to the fact that you said, reading from Marquise on Yahoo News, that this is absolutely This is absolutely gentrification. This is absolutely a drier and also hotter season, longer fire season. And we should pay attention to that.
We absolutely should. And it's going to impact food. It's going to impact everything. So nobody's going to get away from being touched by these kinds of occurrences. And speaking of being touched by occurrences, Norfolk Southern execs, well, guess what? Them geniuses, they want lawsuits dismissed. I'm sure this doesn't come to a surprise to you. Residents in East Palestine, Ohio are still suffering from the aftermath of the Norfolk Southern train derailment on February the 3rd of this year. And now Norfolk executives have the pure unadulterated gall to try and weasel their way out of their responsibility. Take a look at this headline with us. Norfolk seeks to have lawsuits dismissed over a derailment, toxic chemical spill in East Palestine, Ohio. The flippin' nerve. Norfolk has filed a motion in court to dismiss the mass class action lawsuit that has been brought by residents of East Palestine, Ohio, and surrounding communities over the damages caused by the February 3rd train derailment and release of toxic chemicals into the air, the water, and the soil, which is impacting the people. We were down there, and there are many reporters still down there. Shout out to Status Quo for continuing to tell the story of the residents of East Palestine. Animal fish died. I mean, all kinds of stuff. People still suffering on daily basis. And these mofos have the nerve to fix their mouths to try to have cases dismissed so that these people don't get redress. The mass class action lawsuit has consolidated more than 30 separate lawsuits brought by residents, property owners, and businesses that were impacted by the derailment. And Norfolk's motion was just as despicable as one might imagine. This right here, in a motion filed on Friday with the US District Court in Youngstown, Ohio, Norfolk Southern made the absurd claim that they are not responsible for the derailment. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph are obligated to pay for any of the damages caused to residents' health, homes, or businesses because the first car to derail was not owned by the railroad company. These mother suckers. And that they did not have responsibility. Mayor, just go ahead and jump in. I'm telling you, I don't have my fire extinguisher on me right now, and I need thousands of more papers. But this is what these people have done.
This is disgusting. The gall to say, oh, we're not responsible for the car derailment is equivalent to me driving somebody else's car saying, and I hit someone and killed their child, saying, oh, I'm not responsible for this because I didn't own this car. Or Honda built this car, not Mondale. It's their fault the tires weren't gripping enough. This is disgusting. This company should go bankrupt. Yes, I know that they lost a lot of jobs, but the idea that you don't care about human life this manner, the fact that you brought this lawsuit to court, the lawyers, everybody. Lawyers used to get hell for defending black people in segregated America. Yes. Where's the lawyers getting hell for defending these nasty corporations that show up in this manner? Norfolk Southern is a donkey of the day.
That's it. To take a page out of the Breakfast Club and Charlemagne the God, they definitely are the donkey, probably of the decade here. And the fact that Norfolk Southern train had passed not one, but 3 hot bearing detectors, the first over 40 miles before reaching East Palestine, or that each detector showed that the bearings were getting hotter and hotter, was ignored by attorneys. And here's just one example of what these residents of East Palestine have had to suffer through.
I had breathed in chemicals and I had a raw rash all over my lips that took about 3 weeks to get rid of. Just recently, like when it rains, my basement floods with chemicals and my nose starts gushing blood. I choke on it. It's terrible. And my house hasn't even been tested. It's not in priority for Norfolk Southern, but I'm getting sick every single day, whether it be a cough, a bloody nose, just fatigued. I mean, it's terrible.
And still to this point, it's still affecting you in that way.
Yes, and it's just been getting like progressively worse for me. Like my cough, my allergies, my nosebleeds. Like at first it was like one nosebleed here and there, and now it's constant. Like I have to worry about what I'm wearing because I'm scared I'm gonna get blood on my shirt.
You know, that's really a damn shame. And many of East Palestine's nearly 5,000 residents, as well as people throughout the area, suffered severe burns to their throats, their eyes, their nose, their lips. Many people developed rashes, dizziness, and headaches. This reporting coming from Samuel Davison of World Socialist Web. This is just another example of corporations gone wild and how the United States federal government is allowing this to happen. How the Department of well, we need the Department of Justice too, but the Department of Transportation was asleep at the wheel. And you know what? What they can spend this money on, instead of trying to block lawsuits against them, how about they spend the money on making the residents of East Palestine whole? How about that? How about just do it that way? Do you know the multi-millions of dollars that they're about to spend to try to block these people from being made whole? It is indeed an absolute shame. Put the mayor up next to me. Our time is up, Mayor, but it was such a pleasure to have you with us on this Friday, speaking truth to power as we always do. And you know what we want people to do about this time. We want them to always keep the faith, but more importantly, we want them to keep the fight. Until next time.